Yeah, there's a handful of reasons why we lowered it. One of the biggest being protecting the value of the game for the customers. That's a very important thing to people.
This is a question that you may or may not want to share, but I'll ask it anyway. What is a successful goal for you, like per week? How many games you want to do, or what is a successful run on a title? Because you did contract the number a little bit, which I think is actually beneficial for a game like Evil Dead, because you're probably going to cater to the hardcore Evil Dead fans and the pinball fans. I don't know how many new people you're going to get with such a very specific theme, and so it makes sense to give a very targeted, focused number, and to be able to get those out to the super fan people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a handful of answers to that question. Right now, we're cruising at about 16 to 20 games per week. I'd
Okay.
like to still be floating around that 16 mark throughout the production of Evil Dead, which I think that's about where we're going to be. The game's still selling very strong. Uh, I think we probably are going to sell this game out this year. Hoping so. That would be pretty cool. Um, but
And what number is that? Like, so everybody knows.
888 Evil Dead is limited to 888 collector's edition units. The collector's edition is kind of fun. It's the only edition. We just didn't change the name because we don't like shaking up too many things before a game launch and confusing people. But it's 888
It's the top level
of the top
Yeah.
level model
Yep.
that we have offered for the last 4 years. But yeah, the 16 to 20 games a week is right about where we want to be. And yeah, we have limited Evil Dead lower than some of our previous titles. I mean, Looney Tunes and TCM were both limited to 888, but they came out at the same time, so it was over 1,500. Right. Like it's still a ton of units. And Scooby Doo limited to 1,900. Yeah, there's a handful of reasons why we lowered it. One of the biggest being protecting the value of the game for the customers. That's a very important thing to people in this industry, is the resale value of their game. And I think back when we did Rick and Morty and it was that 750 units and it sold very strong and had a great fan base, it also protected the value of the game for a lot of those people. And that really helps, that when people can, any extra reason people can feel good when they buy your game, you should take that very seriously.
Right.
And we do. So protecting the customer's value, not trying to shoot for the stars and produce 3,000 games a year because it will kill all of us sooner than later. Another very
but that
big
does
reason.
kill your resale too. Just exactly what you're saying.
Exactly.
If you have, any game that produces like 5 to 10,000 games, eventually there's going to be a lot on the market. I bet
100%.
just throwing it out there, I bet you can get a good deal on an old school Metallica Pro right now.
Sure. Yeah.
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 Because they made like 10,000 of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
so protecting that resale value is super important.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because like
going to make.
I went through. I was actually going through your guys's your games on Pinside, and they're keeping track of sales and whatnot. And to your point, yeah, you look at Rick and Morty, the resale value right now is anywhere from, I mean, there's one at 8,500, but it's typically about 9,500 to 11. And then you look at Halloween, where you guys made a ton of them, and you're looking around like $5,000-6,000. But the other interesting part too, to your point, because people are like, why are they only going one model? It's funny because I went through.
That's what people want.
Well, that's what's funny is I went through the sales. Yeah, there's no sales. Like if you go to Halloween, where there's a collectors and a bloodsuckers and all the stuff, literally the only ones that are selling are the collector's edition. So it either means people bought the standard and the bloodsuckers and aren't selling them, which I highly doubt, or it's literally they're only buying collector's edition. So why are we making these other games? Why are we going through that headache? You know what I'm saying?
Well, it does remind me when we did talk, we visited Jersey Jack, and they threw out there, they basically stopped making the standard Guns N' Roses because it wasn't selling. Like people didn't want that. They wanted the full version. And my attitude is, when I see a spooky game, I see the same thing. If you're going to spend the money for this, why would you want anything less than the top level?
Well, in our top level, just has so much bang for the buck. I mean, Evil Dead, I'm not going to go into the whole list. We've talked this to death. But I mean, the
Yeah.
features that you get in Evil Dead at that $9,999 price tag, it would cost you so many thousands of dollars to get those features into any other game in the market that is priced similar to ours. And yeah, so when you offer the standard and the Bloodsuckers editions that were just a couple grand cheaper, I mean, uh, over 90% of our sales were collector's editions. It just was no longer worth the headache of doing different sculpts, plastics, art packages. That's a whole new set of approvals and this and that you have to do. And I just would rather have one version of the product and it's the best version of the product out
Yep.
there, especially when that's the only one people were buying anyway.
That was just a taste of our full episode that's out right now, episode 154. Check it out on our channel at Loser Kid Pinball.